I'd like to call this meeting of the School District of Baraboo Board of Education to order for Monday, January the 12th, 2015 with roll call. Mr. Cummings is not with us tonight. He's not feeling well. Mr. McNevin?
Here.
Mr. Meering?
Here.
Mr. Mortimer is also not with us tonight. He's not feeling well. Ms. Riley?
Here.
Mr. Bedrow?
Here.
And Vodak here. Continue with the pledge. Flag behind the counter by the clock. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any board members that were not at our last board meeting when we come to approval of the minutes? Everyone was in attendance. I would thus entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes of the board meeting from December 15th.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Vedro, seconded by Riley. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Minutes thus approved and carried. Brings us to correspondence, of which I have none. Mr. Meering?
Yeah, I did forward one correspondence from our legislative contact from the Wisconsin Association of School Boards. It was regarding Assembly Bill number 1, which is the school accountability bill. I've already sent some information to our representative Dave Considine regarding that bill. So my correspondence.
Okay. Administrative correspondence?
I included one piece of correspondence from DPI on the Wisconsin Adult School Crossing Guard Week recognition, and I think there's probably not a better time to recognize the work that those individuals do with the frigid temperatures that we've had, and they've been out there every day waiting for our students, so we want to recognize their contributions. And then today, I did receive 3 letters from WASB highlighting that 3 of our high school students will have their artwork as part of the exhibit at the 2015 State Education Convention coming up here in a couple weeks. It'll be on the 2nd floor, and I'll let you know where it will be, but it's the opportunity to showcase their work to over 3,000 attendees at that convention, and that's Hannah Cabezos, I don't know if I said that right, Alexis Leroy, and Alyssa Hellison. And so congratulations to those 3 students. And that's it.
Thank you. Brings us to the portion of the agenda for public viewpoints. Do we have anyone here for public viewpoints tonight? Hi.
Is it on? No. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Crystal. Your legacy will remain strong in each one of us. Crystal, through your steadfast vision and unselfish leadership, you have built an enterprise that will continue to innovate and succeed. Without you, we'll be able to influence our destiny through the capacity you have built and nurtured with teachers and administrators. Although it appears we have little control in public education, it is continuity and remaining focused that will be invaluable assets while we navigate the challenges and turn them into opportunities. As we suffer the loss of experience, expertise, and wisdom through the retirements of you and many great teachers, we can sustain a strong and viable educational community through the decades of your influence that will continue for generations. We have learned not to get distracted. We have learned to grow and sustain the strength of all the talent in our district. You will be missed, but you will not be forgotten. You have taught us always to be great by choice. Thank you.
Any other public viewpoints? Any other public viewpoints? Wasn't sure of the order.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Barry Hardup. My family lives here in the Baraboo School District. I'm the Director of Veterinary Services at the International Crane Foundation and a clinical instructor of veterinary medicine at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. I'd like to urge the school board to adopt the next generation science standards to guide science education here in Baraboo. Standards are well benchmarked guidelines with a solid foundational framework provided by the National Research Council of the National Academy of Sciences, the country's foremost independent science advisory institution. Numerous state educators, science educators, and other non-federal stakeholders were responsible for developing updated, relevant, and rigorous K-12 science standards. It's a program that takes the best approaches in science learning, integrates a solid variety of practices and emphasis on cross-cutting ideas, all to better encourage critical thinking, problem solving, and how to build on new information. These are all qualities we want for an educated public and workforce. They're the kind of qualities I see in the best veterinary students and our young trainees and colleagues across several disciplines at the International Crane Foundation. So it helps me be a better citizen, diagnostician, conservationist, researcher, and program administrator. I think it's time to take the next step. The staff has thoroughly evaluated and trialed units aligned with the standards. They integrate well with language and mathematics goals of the Common Core. Adopting the next generation science standards will enable a full implementation plan to be set in motion by the faculty science team. And I feel this is a commendable step forward for our district. I want to thank Dr. Karen Mesmer for her leadership on this issue, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other public viewpoints?
Hi, I'm Dr. Stephen Swallen. I teach chemistry up at UW Baraboo County. And so I actually feel like I've got a particular interest in speaking about the next generation science standards because I actually see on the front lines the Baraboo High School graduates immediately after they graduate, and also lots of returning students. So I can really see how the Baraboo schools prepare students. And actually I want to start just by saying, first off, that I really appreciate the great job that the Baraboo schools are doing, because I see students from all the surrounding school districts, and almost without exception, the Baraboo students are the best prepared, so we can feel good about that. The one thing that I really want to encourage, and I think actually will be addressed by the next generation standards, is the ability to think critically. And that's really something that I think is missing in a lot of the students' education these days, and it's actually getting worse. And so, I really want to encourage something like the next generation standards that will help students to think critically. It's really about asking questions. It's a change from, instead of just learning facts, to be able to integrate concepts, be able to use the facts, to be able to analyze data. And one of the really great things about the next generation that I see is that it's able to integrate concepts over time. They focus on a set of standards, things like physical science and biology, and they really look at a few specific topics, narrow it down, and they evolve these same topics over time. So the elementary school students will consider a set amount of physical science, and they'll consider the same topics throughout middle school and through high school. Like, for example, I looked at some of the physical science, and they look at energy, for in the elementary school district, or the elementary level, they consider energy as a means of how does it help things interact, change of energy, transfer of energy from one object to another, like, say, going from a low temperature system to a high temperature system. How does energy flow? And then, so it's just measurement of temperature, something that elementary students can do. Middle school, you evolve this into being able to analyze data. Same type of concepts, but at more advanced level. Once in the high school, they use modeling techniques to understand energy flow, and it's really the same ideas, but evolves with the students. So I think it's actually a really good improvement in how our students can approach science. And so I really would encourage the school district to adopt the next generation standards. Okay, so thanks.
Thank you. Any other public viewpoint?
We're going to save the best for last. Good evening. My name is Gil Hansch. I'm President and CEO at MSA Professional Services. an engineering firm based here in Baraboo. And I, too, am here to speak on behalf of the Baraboo School District's adoption of the next generation science standards and their integration into the K through 12 curriculum. Unlike our last two esteemed scientists, I'm going to talk specifically about the engineering aspects. And what really, of course, got me excited is when I learned it's more than science, but it's about the application of science. They're integrating engineering concepts into all levels of this curriculum, K through 12. That's the cross-cutting things that Dr. Swallen and Dr. Hardup talked about. So for me, just to define our terms, you've got science, which is the study and the learning, but the engineering is the application of the science in solving problems. So some of the reasons why I feel it's important that the district adopt these standards, and it's really imperative for our students to get exposed to engineering education at an early age. Certainly, there's not too many TV shows about engineers, so they don't get inspired like they do about maybe NCIS. We had MacGyver a few years back, but most kids today don't know about him. So we really need to be getting the engineering process instilled in kids at a very early age. One of the things that I think about is really necessary for kids to operate in this future society. Technology always changes at an increasing rate of increase. For the mathematicians, they would tell you it's exponential. The people that pay attention and measure our rates of progress across history would tell you something like the rate of technological change that our society is going to experience in the next 100 years is equal to everything we've seen in the last 20,000 years. So in order to be functional in a rapidly changing society, we have to raise the baseline of science and engineering, not even to be successful in your career, just to exist in that kind of society. We can look at supply and demand. The engineering workforce is older than the workforce at large, so we're going to see more and more retirements of this institutional knowledge. Couple that with an always increasing demand for engineers, and we've got a real problem of supply and demand in our future. There was a study published in Forbes magazine earlier this year. There's more, they monitor the postings versus the hirings. There's more postings than hirings being made. So either it's just sheer numbers or also the quality of the applicants. The education isn't good enough for what employers are looking for these days. I can speak firsthand on what it's like to be searching to fill vacancies with good engineering talent. So this is really, I've got two interests here. It's about the kids in Baraboo. I've sent my kids through this district. I'm going to live in this community, so I want to live in a community where we've got well-educated kids. But I'm an employer, and I need to be able to make sure that there are more kids coming into this workforce so companies like mine can hire them. We've got 100 people in the office here in Baraboo. I think there's only 2 of them in technical positions that are Baraboo High School grads, and I'd like to see more of them. In 12 years, I'd like to be hiring those 4th graders and giving them the opportunity to work here in Baraboo in an engineering field. And just to contradict myself a little bit, it is more than just about engineering. Every kid will need to increase their proficiency in science, in math, to succeed in any occupation and be part of an informed citizenry. So I urge you to raise the bar for science and math and engineering standards by adopting the next generation science standards. I would like to specifically thank Dr. Mesmer for her efforts and Dr. Ritzenthaler for giving her the latitude to explore and implement this. So again, I would urge you to adopt these standards, and thank you for your time tonight.
Okay, thank you. Last but not least, I don't even know that you're last.
Oh, we have one more. My name is Serge Koenig. I work for Sauk County Conservation Department, and I've been in that position for the last 20 years or so. Being in the science field professionally and seeing firsthand the issues that we deal with on a regular basis in our lakes, in our rivers, in our streams, in our soils, and just general natural resources, I feel like our hands are full. There's a lot to tackle all at once. And developing young problem solvers and critical thinkers with deeper understanding of the issues are quite important to solve some of these problems. And I feel like we need people who can work in a team building setting, because the issues are so complex and involve multiple layers from a social standpoint, financial, environmental groups, and they all need to work together to solve this. And the next generation science standards is more, it seems like it's more of a collaborative effort, which is kind of what we need out there. There's no like, I'm going to solve all these problems by myself. I've 20 years, I think, has taught me that. You got to work with a bunch of people in order to accomplish it. I have led multiple school groups on field days in the Baraboo School District and Reedsburg and Sauk over the past 20 years. I've given talks to the classrooms on various science-oriented topics over the past 20 years. And we stand in the streams and we dig up invertebrates and we measure different parameters within the water, and we get our hands dirty in the soil and look at the soil life. It's an invaluable way of bringing science to life. And you can just see a lot of light bulbs being turned on during those processes. And I feel like Next Generation Science Standards stresses this way of learning, which is an awfully important way of learning. I also have a personal interest. We have 2 kids in the Baraboo School District and would like to see them taught under this system. I expose them to a lot of science at home, but it's tough to duplicate the efforts that this would bring about. So in closing, I would urge you to support the resolution to adopt the Next Generation Science Standards. Thank you.
I'm Karen Ellsworth. I'm a physician in Baraboo, and I've got 2 kids in the district. And I don't have all the stuff I was going to say. I'm going to throw out because everybody else has said it. But I guess I wanted to make 2 points. And I don't mean to get too personal, but one is that I think my medical school taught this way. And most medical schools, the first 2 years, you sit in a classroom and they pour knowledge into your brain and you regurgitate it out at test time. And most people hate the 2 years of medical school. In fact, a lot of schools, they have scribes where they take the notes and then they sell them to the students so they don't have to sit there for 9 hours every day. Ours, we had patients from the day one, and we worked with real patients, and we had to ask the questions like, what is going on? And then we had to figure out how we would figure out what's going on and how we would treat them. And in that way, we learned piece by piece medicine. And this was like an experiment in itself, and they tested us for like 20 years of students that way. We did equally well on the boards, on the nationalized tests, and then we did better in the practical skills, like once we got to the hospital. They could tell us apart. And I liked medical school, and not many people can say that. So I think it's a great way to learn science, and I wish more kids liked science, because I did, and I just feel like if kids could do more hands-on stuff, they'd really enjoy it. So number one, I'm hoping it'll increase the enjoyment factor, and also to get more kids go into science, because we need that. And then secondly, I think even people who don't go into science need critical skills. As a physician, it makes me kind of sad to see people not understanding things like immunizations and then deciding to not have their kids immunized. And I know there's a lot of controversy over this, and I don't really want to get into that, but you see people in third world countries or poor people, and they're asking for immunizations. And then there's people here that don't have critical thinking skills, in my opinion, and then they deny those to their kids. There's also people that I'll ask them, this happens daily, I'll say, so what you're trying for your child, do you think it's helping or not? Because I want to know, like, should we continue doing that? And I'm always amazed at the people who don't know if what they're doing is helping or not. Like, they can't tell if something is making a difference. And I just think it's really good to have observational skills and then critical thinking skills for everybody, for every part of their life. So that's why I'm for these standards. Thank you.
Any other public viewpoints? Any other public viewpoint? Any other public viewpoint? Hearing none, I'd like to move on to what's always a highlight of our board meeting.
Before we do that, may I make a comment?
Certainly.
Thank you. I want to appreciate all of the input on the next generation of science standards, of which I know most of my colleagues are in agreement with. But I would also like to remind us about the point of critical thinking. And I will take it upon myself to connect the dots. It is absolutely imperative for public education to be able to fulfill the commitment of critical thinking and to support the next generation of science standards, that we defeat the current attempt to take $1 billion from public education, which this current legislation is attempting to do, which will defeat all of the attempts to educate our broad base of young people to be critical thinkers and understand what is going on. I would ask you to carry that message forward with as much vigor and intelligence as you have asked us to support the next generation of science standards, because we can't do it without your assistance. Thank you.
Just a reminder, we do have on our agenda continued discussion in regards to the next generation science standards, and Karen will have a presentation for us as agendized. Staff and student recognition, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Ritzenthaler. Before I do that, board was invited to tour the high school, Baraboo High School store that's on the second floor. I think pretty much everybody had an opportunity to do so. I would like to thank those that were there for the ability for board members to see firsthand what it is that you're doing. I don't know if anybody in the audience doesn't know what's there. I'll leave it up to them to suggest to you what items they have, because there's some cool stuff there. Dr. Ritzenthaler?
So we're going to have Greg Manson here with us tonight, and he's the teacher who has led the effort along with 3 students who are here tonight, Patrick Bro, Hermes Duran, and Sarah Crowley. And they were kind enough to give us a tour of the store and to talk a little bit about the connections between what they're learning through the entrepreneurship class and the business that they have here at the high school. So Greg, I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome, thank you. I'm Greg, business teacher here at the high school. I want to give you guys my appreciation for inviting us to come here and be recognized. It's always nice, especially myself and students. School store's been a long time coming now. When I was hired last year, Glenn approached me and he asked me if I'd be interested in putting together something that we could use to help our incentives program for PBS that we have here at the high school. And for some reason, without thinking on impulse, I said yes. But it's been an amazing journey for myself. I've learned a lot that I never really would have thought about. When we started out last year, we put together a coffee table, a bed sheet. We were trying to sell sweatshirts and coffee in May. It's 80 degrees outside. So taking those experiences and trying to put them into the classroom and learn from mistakes and moving forward has been always kind of the mentality that we try to take whenever we do something in the class entrepreneurship. So it's been really a blessing for me, and I put together a couple of thank yous that I want to make sure were said tonight. So none of this would have ever been possible. It wouldn't have been without Mrs. Renzi for giving up her classroom for us. So that was huge. And then also, for the class of 2011, they gave us some seed money of $2,500. And it would not have been possible without them. So we went ahead and we had a plaque made for them to commemorate them. It's our way of saying thank you, and we really appreciate what they did for us. And also sending you an email. A couple other people that I want to make sure get thanked. Lori was able to help us get our POS machine that we have in the store. Without it, we probably wouldn't have the type of learning that we do. For those of you that don't know, POS machine is just a point of sale. It's our cash register. It's a lot more than just something though that you're able to make cash transactions out of. We're able to pull powerful logistics from it and do incredible data mining that you wouldn't be able to pull from just running a paper pen business. Kids are able to look at pricing, do cost benefit analysis. They're able to determine what type of needs we have, what's selling, what isn't. It's really powerful learning. Things that you just can't pull from, sitting in a room all day long. We're doing a lot of abstract thinking, and it wouldn't be possible, so thank you, Lori, really appreciate it. Also like to thank St. Vinny's for donating mannequins and fixtures, and then Habitat for Humanity for helping us get our display cabinets that we have upstairs. Making the school store has been a totally new experience for me, and I guess the most rewarding part that I've been able to take from it is watching the kids start the store from beginning to end, showing up to shifts, learning something new, and then making it their own thing. And for me, that's it's way more rewarding than, if we were just to put a whole bunch of money in and have a really nice store, you know, and show it off to everybody. So we started off with something really small, and every year it's going to get better, and I hope that you guys stick with it, because we're definitely going to. I brought some kids here today. They want to tell you about the kind of stuff that they learned in class, and appreciate it.
How are you guys doing? I'm Patrick Bro. I'm going to talk to you guys about the sales of the school store. So during the semester, excuse me, I have a sore throat. The Baraboo school store has gained some real traction. We have a consistent and significant customer base that comes in day in and day out to buy our products. Because of our easy-to-use POS system and our comprehensive sales team, who does a great job every day, we've been able to gain $2,145 during this first semester. And that's in gross sales. And as of late, we've been able to pull in between $120 and $200 weekly. But we also understand that there's peaks in sales. Homecoming and the holidays were some of our biggest peaks in sales. But whether it's the holidays or just a normal Monday morning, we know that our sales team and everybody that comes in cares enough to make our students experience the best from the time they walk in to the time they leave with their coffee and their sweatshirts. Although, you know, sales are our goal, we obviously we're a business, so sales are our end goal, but we understand that we're a business, so we have to make products for our students, you know. Supply and demand, it's just basic economics, but that's the beauty of capitalism, that's the beauty of the school store. It's products for the kids, and it's products made by the kids. So it's a school-wide effort, and we appreciate everybody who supports us and backs us, because it's a great thing, and it's a beautiful learning experience for all of us, so thank you.
Hey, I'm Edmus Duran, and I'm going to be talking about marketing in the school store. So basically, the last semester we've learned a lot of the struggles and benefits of marketing. The main way we market our products is our weekly flyer that we call The Word. So basically, the flyer, we start off with some cheesy jokes, and then under that we do a weekly giveaway. So for example, we'll quote a line from a movie, and then have somebody tweet us the answer, and then if they get it right, we pick somebody, and then they'll get a free coffee. And this way we get this way our Twitter page gets followers, and that allows us to market our products at no cost. And then so it's a good way of push and pull marketing, because at first people felt pressure to read it because it was all over the bathrooms. And now they're excited for the new edition to come out every week. And we know this because every week we hear kids telling the same cheesy jokes in the hallway. So that's how we know it's working. Yeah, that's our main way we market our products, and it's about the end of my speech.
Could you tell me what the Twitter handle is? I need some new cheesy jokes.
What's that?
What's the Twitter handle that we can follow so we can get some?
VHS
What?
School Store.
At VHS School Store.
Oh, okay, cool. Thank you.
Right, so my name is Sarah. I'm going to be explaining the process of our product creation. Basically, like Patrick said, all of the products that are in our school store were designed by the students. So for those of you that were there, you saw all of the sweatshirts and the t-shirts and everything. Those were all designed by students. If you notice the art on the blackboard, that was drew by a student, and also the art on the front door. We have water bottles that were recently brought in. Those were also designed by students. And everything else that we sell in the school store is marketed directly towards students. So that's our biggest seller is probably the coffee. Yeah, and that's, yeah.
Walking through a maze here. Well, Greg, as a new teacher, we're very proud of you for undertaking this venture with our students, and we can tell that it's really benefited them, and how professional you are in looking at all areas of business, and I can't wait to see what happens in the future with the store. I think you'll only make it better. So on behalf of the board, here's our certificate of appreciation for the work that you do, and thank you for your leadership. And then students, I have honors for excellence medallions for your leadership and for venturing out with this new course and making the school store your own. I don't want to see these for sale.
Right.
So congratulations.
I think that'd be excellent.
Yeah, there's a profit there.
Next up on our agenda is the continuous school improvement, and we will continue now with the next generation science standards. And we'll start off with Dr. Mesmer.
Well, it's good to be back here. I talked last year and presented a brief introduction to the next generation science standards, and I'm going to hit some of those high points again to refresh your memory because you have lots of things on your plate since the last time I talked to you. So I wanted to stress the difference between what we've been doing before NGSS and what we are doing now and plan to do in the future. So NGSS reflects real science. Kids are actually doing science as they are in the classrooms. And research, especially some of the research that I've actually worked on, strongly suggests that when kids do science, then they learn it. If you just read about it, they're not going to understand not just the content, but about science processes, those practices. So what else is different? Well, nature, science, and engineering are integrated kindergarten through 12th grade. So kids learn about what science is, how it operates, and then, as Gil mentioned, engineering is going to be incorporated into every single grade that's going to be learning science here. So we had started a partnership with MSA professionals. The engineers at MSA will work with teachers and students and on engineering projects and raise awareness of engineering as a career choice. So I met with Gil and some of the other engineers over at MSA. Tomorrow we're going to have our first meeting with some of the engineers and teachers in 8th grade to talk about how we might do a bridge design project. They'll learn about bridges and come up with different bridge designs to solve a problem. And then we're going to go to 4th grade again this year, and then hopefully next year start and do some more things with that. Gil, anything else you want to mention about the partnership that we
I think the main thing is when Karen reached out to me and explained that there was this, not only the science standards, but the engineering element, it was just simply how can I help? And we're very early in the partnership, and we're sort of waiting to see where it goes, but it's going to be sort of class by class, and how can we help? And we started with 4th grade, now we're expanding into 8th. We know there's an engineering class already at the high school that we'd like to get involved in, and plans for one at the middle school. So we're very excited. Again, this is right in line with our core beliefs, and we're happy to help.
And Brian back there will be one of the teachers that'll be helping with the 8th grade. So thanks for coming. Also that's been mentioned before is NGSS builds coherently K through 12. So what they learn in elementary school is built on in high school, is built on in middle school, and then in high school. I have never seen anything this interrelated that builds on one another. And I think kids, once they start in kindergarten and go through 12th grade with this, that they will really understand science, what science is all about, and be able to be better citizens through that. And as other people have mentioned in the beginning comments, focus on deeper understanding and application, critical thinking. Kids are going to be analyzing. They're not going to be doing a little bit of everything, but looking at problems and trying to solve them deeper. Another great thing is that it's aligned with the Common Core. So we've got the Common Core all throughout all the grade levels, and this will just fit seamlessly in with that. So there are 3 parts: the scientific and engineering practices, the cross-cutting disciplines, or cross-cutting concepts, and the disciplinary core ideas. And this is what we normally think of with science. We think of life science, physical science, earth and space science, and then we've added the engineering and technology in there. But that's not all that there is to the NGSS. So content's not enough. If you think back to your science classes, that's what you learned. You learned the science. But you need to be able to learn how science is done, engage in those practices. So you need to do science. So you are able to problem solve, you are able to make decisions, because that's what kids are going to be focused on when they get out of school and even in school, that they're going to have to be able to explain what's happening, not just cite a few facts here and there. So these are the practices, and the ones that we've been focusing quite a bit on in middle school and high school and even elementary, developing and using models, constructing explanations, and engaging in argument from evidence. And if you do those three, the other ones kind of fall in line. You're doing all of these different practices if you concentrate on developing and using models, constructing explanations, and then getting the kids to argue their viewpoint, because if they can do that, they actually learn it better, and there's a lot of research for that too. Cross-cutting concepts are things like patterns and energy, structure and function that go through all the scientific disciplines. And so this will help kids to connect all the different parts. So this is one thing that we really need to work on as science teachers, is to figure out how do we do this? How do we get kids to see that energy is the same through all those different scientific disciplines? I wish that I had learned this way, and I heard some comments here about that this is a great way for kids to learn to be able to connect all those parts. And I like this little diagram here where you've got a stronger set of science education if you do all three of those things, the practices, the cross-cutting concepts, and the core ideas. The rope is a lot stronger, just like your science learning is a lot stronger. So if you look at the bottom of a page of the NGSS, this is what it has, and that's the connection boxes that shows how to connect it to the Common Core standards in both English Language Arts and math. So everything is right there to try and figure out how to do that. So here's what we've done so far. In service to all teachers of science, K through 12, many of them multiple times. Elementary teachers are using one NGSS Align unit this year. We're hoping to do some more next year. Middle school's adopted iQuest, investigating and questioning with science and technology for 6th and 8th grade. Previous 7th grade curriculum, I modified that, changed it so it would align with NGSS. And then biology has revised their curriculum so that it's aligned. And I'd like to give a little shout out to the biology department, because they weren't expected to do this until later, and last year they just kind of jumped in and started right from get-go, and have done an excellent job in converting to NGSS already.
Mm-hmm.
What we plan to do is to add units at the elementary level as they become available, add an integrated chemistry and physics at the high school next year, which you folks approved before, and students can take this class for a year of chemistry and physics, and then add an earth science capstone requirement for 2016 to 2017. What we're thinking of is students will pick 2 of the following semester courses: weather, astronomy, geology, environment, for that requirement.
That's a minimum, though.
That, yes.
They can take all of them
Oh,
if they
yes.
wanted to.
Yes.
Yes.
So here's kind of an outline of it,
Mhm.
and Mike and Michelle put this together. So biology in the first year, either take the integrated chemistry and physics, or if they think they're going into a STEM career, do chemistry for a full year, physics for a full year,
Mhm.
and then the earth science capstone courses. But all of these other things, the AP classes can also be taken: anatomy, biotech, wildlife. Now the EMS class should also be on there, since that's been approved. So that's kind of the flow of what we would like to do. So anybody have any questions or comments or concerns?
Yeah, we're going to have a proposal tonight, and you know, some of the things that we look at, I know one of the things in our strategic plan was like the 4 C's, you know, communication, critical thinking, creativity, and collaboration. These all support those.
They fit in.
And
totally
with spades
completely.
and so forth and
Yes.
beyond that. We obviously had Gil and others in our surrounding area talk about this is where they want our students to be. And I mean, I've heard statistics where 80% of any decent jobs are going to be math, science related. And so, again, these all support those things. And the last bullet point that we have on that is, and Steve, I think, brought that up. It's interesting to look at it. It's like you don't. We're always used to, I think, in science education, it's like you get the stuff all at one shot, and you might get it in 8th grade, but it's like, whoa. But we're kind of giving it to them, and then they're just doing it and just learning at higher levels all along. So I think it's just a wonderful thing that we're going ahead and moving ahead with this, and certainly that's how I hope that we go as a board on it too, which I believe is the right thing. So.
And you see the scientific community in this area supports it, the teachers, everyone that I've talked to supports it. I'd love to see this formally adopted in the district.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you. You know, up next on the agenda, we have Gil,
Well,
unless
that
you've
was-
already presented.
that was kind
Yeah,
of
we're kind of tag
It was a
team on that.
It's your last shot if you want to
What's
say
your-
I will the story being.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Brings us then to agenda reports. And first up under reports, we have the ACT Aspire results, and we'll let Ms. Mueller provide highlights for that.
All right, so the results are in your packet, which might be easier to see than up here. And really, I just want to remind the board what the ACT Aspire 9 test is. This is the first year in the state's history that there's a state accountability assessment for our 9th graders. So the state has purchased ACT Aspire, which is a newly designed assessment that is a longitudinal assessment that some districts can opt to use from grades 3 through 12th grade. But as our state, they have funded just 9th through 12th grade, or 11th grade. Our juniors will take the ACT. So I'm a little concerned. Let's see what we got going on here. So as a reminder, our students take the assessment in October. It's intended for students to take in the spring, but our state would like a growth measurement for our 9th graders to include on the state accountability report cards. So what we did this year as a state is every 9th grader took the assessment to get a fall baseline set of data so that the teachers can use the data to improve the students' growth over the course of the year and then measure that growth at the end of the school year in spring, and that will be used then on the accountability report card for the high school. So what you have in your packet, this first document, and Glenn, you feel free to jump in anytime because he's an expert on sharing this data. What you have is the subject proficiency by grade level. We only had one grade level, so 9th graders. And what you see here is that according to their performance, English was the highest that they performed, so English is listed first, and writing was the lowest performance, so it's listed in the report from their highest performance to lowest performance. Well, what you're seeing here is 64% of our students in the fall scored already at college and career readiness benchmarks on the ACT in the area of English. We have 54 students here, not percent, but 54 students who are close to benchmark and 45 that are in need of support. So that's how you read each of these bars. So reading, we were at 47% ready, math 42, science 40, and writing 30. You gotta keep in mind now this gives us an opportunity to focus. And what's nice here, this kind of looks like a compass down here. And it says to us on the report, better proficiency in writing may improve scores. So that's good direction for us as we move forward. You can see in this lower half of the chart that the national ready bars are aligned to where our students are. So when I read this, 64% proficient or already at college and career ready in English is a little bit above the national percentage. So that's just showing us that more of our students are college and career ready compared to the national numbers. We are doing well in reading, math, and science, and again, writing is the only area where we're below the national.
Are those national ready standards for seniors or?
For freshmen.
But the national ready standards are both freshmen both ways.
Correct. So
Okay.
because the ACT Aspire is a new assessment, it measures for grades 3 through 12. So that's really looking at freshman performance.
Okay.
Okay. So then the rest of the report here, you will see that same data represented but by different demographics. I'm not going to read all those to you because you have that in your report. One of the things that we noted when we looked at the data in depth as a high school staff is there are some gaps in performance between our males and females in particular. So that gave us some ideas about where we need to focus efforts with interventions. And so you'll see for different subgroups. And then this report shows our current progress. And again, it's going to be easier to see in your packet, but for each of the different subsets or subtests of the ACT, you'll see that how our students are performing. Here's 9th grade. There's a little orange dot that shows where they are performing. So again, English we're ready, math we're close, science we're close, writing we're close, and reading we're close. So in none of the subtests does it show that we're, it's desperation or urgency. But what it's showing too is after a year's worth of instruction, they're predicting with the lighter orange circle where our students are going to be. Of course, this is the first time Baraboo High School students are taking this test, so that prediction I'm not highly confident in because I know we can grow our students. We've seen that with our other assessment data that the rate of growth that we do with our students typically is twofold compared to the national norms.
Did they take the Explorer, or even though we're not taking it now?
These current students took the Explorer as 8th graders.
So do our current scores seem to compare with those?
The current scores do, but it's a tough translation, Doug, because it's a totally different metric in measuring their progress.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The Explorer used to have a 2-digit
Sure.
score, and now with the ACT Aspire, it's a 3-digit score. However, if you look in the top right-hand corner of your report, it'll show you a predicted ACT composite score. That's a prediction of how this particular group of students will perform as a whole on the ACT as juniors. And it's saying that it's a 20.8.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so to compare, the 5-year trend report that you've typically seen in the summer, our composite score has been hovering around 22.3 as a point of reference. So again, when our students took the ACT in the past, it was only a certain subgroup of our students, only students maybe particularly interested in going off to college. It was a little over 50%. This last year we had almost 60% take the ACT, so that was selecting to take the ACT. This is every student. So it's a 2-point difference, which I'm really hopeful that we can do a lot better than that 20.8.
Mm-hmm.
But we are in fact requiring our juniors from here on out to 100%.
Correct.
Of our juniors
Correct.
to take the ACT.
Right, so all of our 10th graders will take the ACT Aspire as well as a new assessment this spring. And then all of our juniors will be taking the ACT state funded.
And we are expecting because of that, because of a change from around 60% to 100%, we are expecting a drop in scores.
Yeah.
We'd like to change that over
Right.
time.
Right.
But that's likely consequence of those additional students who were probably not planning to go on to college or not at least interested in taking the ACT for that purpose.
Correct. So what we know from our neighbors below us, Illinois has been using the ACT assessment for their state accountability assessment for many years now. And when they first implemented the statewide assessment, their ACT scores dropped because it's taking in the whole population. So yes, you should expect as a state, we're going to dip in our performance with ACT. However, after almost a decade now where the Illinois schools have been using the ACT with all their students, their composite score is back up to where it was prior to when they started the full state or full student population assessment. So
10 years later?
Yes.
No, we can beat
We can
that.
do better than that, right? right. So,
We'll give you a couple years.
I guess I'm encouraged that it's predicting a 20.8. Obviously, that's going to be a goal, I think, as we move forward, is watching that number and seeing how far we can drive that number up. But I wasn't disappointed to see where that landed. I think that's really hopeful for us in terms of growing our students.
And the test they take in the end of the year will be exactly the same test, an
Correct.
identical test.
Correct.
And
So
that's
it'll
the
be-
score. Those are the scores that go to the state.
And yep, those are the scores that really count. So this is really formative for us right now. It gives us a pathway
Yes.
for improvement.
I understand.
Yeah, and so just the last part of the report shows our national percentile ranks. And Glenn and I had a really giddy moment when we were sitting with each other reviewing this, because you might recall that writing was the lowest performance. When you look at our student performance and compared to the national percentile rankings, writing was our highest performance.
As compared to the national?
Yes, yeah. So what that means, 65%, it says the 65th percentile is how our students performed in writing. What that means is that the median writing score is at 65th percentile for our students, And that's comparing the typical student in this group achieved as well as or better than 65 of the students in the nation. So writing was our highest performance, followed by reading, then science, then math, and then English. And recall on the first page of the report, English was the highest performance we had just by looking at Baraboo High School students. Okay, so there's a lot of interesting ways to dissect this data, analyze it, and use it for growth. The last things I want to point out is that it also gives us a bar in terms of percentage of students that are college and career ready for English language arts, so it combines English reading and writing together. It says 52% of our students are there already. Also in terms of progress with text complexity, that's measuring how well our students comprehend higher level text. We're at 39%, so we have some room for growth there. We also get a STEM measure, so connecting to our next generation science standards. This is going to be data that we'll use as we move forward. And lastly, also with the juniors taking the ACT, they take the Work Keys assessment. And the Work Keys assessment measures applied skills for the workforce. And they're predicting that currently 61% of our kids would score the highest scoring for the National Career Readiness Certification of a gold star. So we'll know more about the Work Keys as we get into the spring. So again, this is all data just to help us plan. Anything you'd like to add, sir?
Just that we're inviting parents of freshman students in tomorrow night at 6 p.m. so that they can come in and receive this information, including copies of the individual reports for their own students and have their questions answered. And then this was all shared out with staff last week, and there's other next steps that we need to take as a staff to make sure that we're preparing our students for the second round of these tests in the spring.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the strategic planning report update.
I just wanted to provide a brief update to the board on where we're at with this process. As you remember, we've had a group of community stakeholders, teachers, we've had a couple board members involved in that process over a series of meetings. We're at the point now where we have 4 general broad goal areas: community partnerships, modernized community campus, personalized learning, and maximizing potential of teachers and learners. So right now we have split our committee into those subgroups, and we have action teams that are working on strategies that align with those goal areas. And our hope is to be able to come forward in February at one of our meetings and be able to have our committee present a proposed strategic plan to the board. And I would welcome any input from other administrators who've been part of that process, or board members.
Have the teams met yet? The 4 teams? Any of them met yet?
We have meetings scheduled for this month.
Okay. Okay. We hope.
So if you haven't been contacted.
Need another meeting.
We have.
Some administrators have busy schedules.
Well, we did have a weather conflict too. Jim and Sean, I think you guys are going to be working together on the facility piece.
Yep, we've been trading a lot of emails back and forth.
Matt, Glenn, and Danny are working on the personalized learning. John Gannell and Lori are working on maximizing potential of teachers and learners, and Lori and I are working on the community partnerships. But we should have meetings scheduled, I think, for all 4 yet this month, where we can at least start that discussion on the strategies. So good progress, great group of people that we worked with this year.
A lot of enthusiasm and sharing. The larger meetings are really an opportunity, a venue for tremendous communication and sharing of ideas. It's a pretty dynamic group.
Yeah, it's been an impressive process.
Yeah, that's it. We'll hear more in February.
Okay, up next under reports for C, we were going to have a referendum building project update. I'm going to suggest we postpone that. It's not an actionable item, so it doesn't necessarily need to be tabled. But this committee, the Buildings, Grounds, and Transportation Committee, is suggesting that we have some revolving, recurring updates from each of the building levels that are affected by the referendum projects. So we will have that on our agenda. I would assume at the next meeting. We're missing 2 members of the Buildings, Grounds, and Transportation Committee tonight, Mr. Mortimer and Mr. Cummings, and we're also missing our Buildings and Grounds Director, Mr. O'Brien. So in lieu of that, I would suggest we postpone that, and we can revisit that issue at our next board meeting, and it will be a regular agenda item as we move forward through the referendum projects to keep the board up to date. Anybody have any issue with that?
No.
Brings us then to the 2015 summer school program update. Lori and Chris.
On your tables, we provided just a draft brochure of our upcoming summer school program, and this year we combined it so the elementary, middle school, and high school information is all in one. It is draft because we're just finalizing some last minute details, but our purpose tonight was to give you the main key points, and we'll be bringing forward a budget detail later when we bring forward teacher contracts as well. And Chris and I have been working diligently on this, so I'd like to thank him for all of his effort as the summer school coordinator. And what we'd like to highlight for you is that we are planning to offer the summer school this year, June 22nd through July 17th. It's a later start than we have in the past because of the construction that's occurring across the district. So we're going to, you may recall, we closed school with our staff June 10th. And so this gives us a week and a half to get construction started in the buildings and give us an opportunity to plan how we're going to accommodate students in the buildings that we're going to have summer school. We also shortened the summer school, so instead of having it for 5 weeks, we're having it for 4 weeks. However, we used to offer it Monday through Thursday. Now we're going to offer Monday through Friday. Again, the rationale as a district leadership team about that is we want to get our students in here and get them out to make sure construction is occurring and that those projects get done. That will not change the number of days we have with students. It's the same numbers we've had in the past by adding that Friday back. Our locations, we're going to continue to have our middle school and high school students here at the high school, and at the elementary level, we're going to continue to stay at Abe, and we're going to continue to have Kids Stop at GLW. We're going to be offering our usual shuttle services and our food service that's been working really well, and it includes a site with Boys and Girls Club with both the shuttle and the food service. Other than that, we're really not changing significantly the look of our summer school. We're continuing to focus with extended learning experiences for our kids that need additional support with skills. Also offering, as we did last year, enrichment courses for our elementary students. That did very well for us last year. We were able to increase our FTE a full 9 students. You know, there's a complicated formula with the summer school FTE, but we went from 30 to 39 in 1 year, so that was impressive. Our first year we only had 18 FTE, so we've been really growing at a nice rate of pace. At the middle school and high school, we'll continue with physical skills, the middle school literacy and math, and at the high school, more with the credit recovery and advanced online learning options. Something that's new this year that will help us financially is students now can take online courses anywhere and still count for summer school FTE. Up until this point, they had to be here physically present during school time for us to count them for attendance for summer school. So this is another opportunity for us to grow our FTE, which would help us with aid. I'd be happy to answer questions, let Chris talk because I just monopolized that, but.
I don't have much to add other than the fact that it's gonna be a little tricky with the amount of construction happening. So I think we kind of went back and forth as to the location, and I think with Abe or any school that we would have had summer school at, we're just gonna have to be flexible and communicate well as to where everything's gonna take place during that month of summer school, so the construction crews can still get their jobs done too. So
We may be
it'll work
using
out.
other entrances to some of the buildings and having makeshift offices while the offices are being repaired. So it's going to be challenging. It's going to require everybody's patience, but we felt like not offering summer school and not offering a food program was not in the best interest of our students or families. So we'll manage it and we'll work around it. And they've been great to work with so far in terms of planning the logistics, and that will be an ongoing process.
So our goal is to try to get even increased membership. Is there ways that we're going about doing that?
I think primarily this year, sustaining the enrichment opportunities really helped us last year, and then with that online learning change, that's gonna really boost our attendance, yeah.
Good.
Any further questions? Thank you for the update. Brings us to personnel recommendations, the first of which is the approval of resignations, of which there's one. We're going to have some additions when we get to the retirements, and I'll take that as we get to it. First up, I would entertain a motion for the approval of the resignation of Ian Crammon from the Baraboo High School Technology Department.
I move to accept the resignation of Ian Crammon.
Second.
Motion by Meering, seconded by Vedro. Any discussion?
Just a note of thanks and appreciation. I know that we've depended a lot on the technology education department, and there have been challenges. Personally, I'm very sad to see that department not whole and complete, but from a letter of resignation, understand certainly opportunities are everywhere. So just a personal note of thanks for all that Ian has done.
Any other comments? I note that there is an early termination clause in Mr. Crammon's contract that the district would enforce. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Under the retirements, I don't know if the board members have all of them. I believe that you do. But there is an addition of number 3, Holly Ford at East, grade 3.
She's actually grade 4. That was
Grade
my
4?
error, yeah.
Sorry about that. 35 years. Number 4, Marcia Steinhorst, East, grade 2. 32 years. And Tom Steinhorst at the high school, Phi Ed, for 34 years. I'd like to take them one at a time. And I would entertain a motion for the first of which is Mr. Bergs from the high school computer and business ed department, 35 years.
I move to approve
Second.
Tim's retirement.
Motion by Meering, seconded by Riley. Again, it goes without saying, appreciation for the years of service. I didn't add up what we've got in the 5 here, including our administrator, but it's a significant amount of experience that's not going to be with us next year. And I certainly want to acknowledge the input and the dedication of those that were accepting resignations of, or retirements of tonight. So having a motion and a second, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Up next is Dr. Ritzenthaler. 27 years in the district, 8, I believe, as district administrator. Something like that. I know it seems a lot longer than that. Personnel committee met a week ago, and we are going to recommend to the board that we accept her resignation. However, there is, in her resignation letter, there was an offer to extend her services through the end of October, and I think it's the recommendation of the personnel committee that we accept her resignation, but work with her on a contract that will extend her services through October the 31st. Or 30th, because I think the 31st is a Saturday, but.
Are we discussing that now, Kevin, or?
That would be part of the motion that I would ask for in the.
Because you say approval of the hiring process for district administrator, are we talking about, that's a separate item?
That's a separate item.
Okay. So I make a motion to approve Dr. Crystal Ritzenthaler's district administration for 27 years. I want you to know that the averages of the other ones were about 33, so I actually think you should hang it.
Should have held up.
And to accept the resignation
I was a
effective.
late bloomer, though.
Oh, I guess so. Effective October
31st.
31st.
Second.
Having a motion and a second. Further discussion or clarification?
I just want to say that I made that offer because I want this to be a smooth transition for our district, and we have some monumental things coming up with our facility projects over the course of the summer, with a lot of hiring that's going to be taking place with our new business manager going through his first annual meeting in September, and a number of other things like the implementation of our new district strategic plan. So it's not that somebody can't walk in and do that, but, you know, I think some overlap would provide better continuity, better smoother transition.
I'd like to echo Teresa Lean's letter comments that came earlier in this meeting. We have seen a, you know, really, I think, major turnaround in the district capabilities in the past 8 years. And I'm sorry to be voting to accept Crystal's retirement.
Any other comments? I'm going to refrain from adding to the comments already made because we're going to have a number of discussions moving forward with Dr. Ritzenthaler still at our table, and we can have a formal, fun send-off to her.
I'm not going yet.
At a later date.
Formal fun.
Formal fun.
Unless there's any additional discussion, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. That brings us to Holly Ford, who has switched from grade 3 to grade 4 since earlier tonight.
Imagine the student's surprise.
35 years at East. And again, thank you for your many years of service. I would entertain the acceptance of her retirement.
Second.
Mr. Meering, were you the motion?
I was.
Mr. McAdam, seconded by Riley. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried, retirement thus approved. Marcia Steinhorst, East, grade 2, 32 years. Entertain a motion for the acceptance of that retirement.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Riley, seconded by Meering. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. And Mr. Tom Steinhorst, High School Physical Education Department, 34 years. Entertain a motion for the acceptance of that retirement.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Motion by McNevin, seconded by Meering. Any further discussion?
Yeah, just a discussion on all of these retirements. I mean, certainly they have done a lot for our community, for our schools, for our children. And you know, we're sorry to see that they're going, but we all wish them the best, so, in their future endeavor. And I'm sure they will continue to be contributing members of our Baraboo community in many different ways.
Anything else? Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Brings us to C. Again, this comes from the Personnel Committee's meeting of last week, where it was discussed how we were going to move forward in seeking a replacement for Dr. Ritzenthaler. A couple things that I had done in the interim since the Personnel Committee meeting of last week and tonight. I had a conversation with the WASB Search Services Consultant, Louis Birchbauer. I'll share my discussion with him with you in a minute. The primary outcome of the meeting of the Personnel Committee and the discussion that we have before us tonight is to decide and have a discussion about how the board wants to move forward. And I see that there's two options that we move in. One is to consider internal candidates first and/or external candidates. And if we're going to do the internal candidates, to try to schedule those interviews and a process for those interviews as soon as possible. I think it goes without saying that the district has certainly received accolades not only from around the state, but from around the nation as far as the administrators, teachers, presenters that we've had at conferences and seminars. I think it's important that we, the board, consider our own before we decide to go outside of the district. That doesn't mean that in the end that we might not end up going outside of the district anyway. To that discussion, my conversation with Mr. Birchbauer in regards, just for information before I entertain a motion for the direction of the board to go. Mr. Birchbauer is, again, the Wisconsin Association of School Board Search Service Consultant. His primary goal with the Wisconsin Association of School Boards is to help districts secure administrators, superintendents, and he offered to come and discuss with the board. I got some preliminary information from him as far as what the expense would be, and I think that that is important to consider in our discussion and in our action as we move forward as far as what our first step's going to be. He indicated to me that for them to help us with a search, a full-blown search for an administrator replacement, that the estimated expense would be between $10,000 and $15,000, which was about triple what I thought it was going to be, but that just goes to show I don't know what it was going to be. There is the opportunity as well to look at an outside, in other words, not the Wisconsin Association of School Boards, but some other headhunting organization. The expectation would be with that move, it would be certainly as expensive, probably more expensive, because you're going to have somebody that's going to start adding expenses and travel time and things to the original amount that's quoted, and it's going to be a fairly expensive process to go above and beyond what the Wisconsin Association of School Boards does. So with that $10,000 to $15,000 figure in mind, I then asked him if there was an opportunity, if the board decided to interview internal candidates, if that was something that his consulting service would be willing to help with. And he indicated that very recently that's what he did. It was a district down by Milwaukee. I don't remember if it was Shorewood or somewhere down by Milwaukee that had a district that was looking to replace their administrator. They decided to interview internal candidates, and he helped the board through that process. So that consideration would be significantly less if we were to have them help us with internal candidate interviews to the tune of less than $5,000. He wouldn't be specific. It involved a couple of meetings with the board, and he would also be part of or sit in on the interviews that would be conducted. So with that backdrop and the fact that I think this board has always expressed, and I'm certainly going to open it up for the board members to comment, because comments have been made to me that I would certainly appreciate being repeated tonight during the discussion as to the district's intentions moving forward.
Well, I have not made any comments, Kevin, to you on this. But my feeling at this point, at least for our initial steps, is that I believe that we should be interviewing internal candidates first. I mean, I think that we have done some very, very good things as a school district with the help of our leadership team. And I think it behooves us to consider those factors first. I mean, there's a lot of advantages as things are moving along, and we want them to continue to improve. But obviously, whenever you bring somebody in new from the outside, even if they're super person, there's always going to be a time lag, and it could be a shift in philosophy. And you know, we've done a lot of work already on our strategic planning and our things that we'll be better able to do with the people that are already on board with that. And so I am one to say let's first look at our own candidates, internal.
I would add to that this board has made a commitment to collaborative engagement and to succession planning from within. We have nurtured from within those professionals who are committed to getting the certifications that are required and the professional development that is necessary. As a district, as a board, we have made a commitment to look within, and we have been very successful. Our history, when we look outside and bring in new folks, is not as stellar as when we look within and promote from within. In normal times, in usual times, standard operating practice is to seek outside. These are not normal and these are not usual times. Further, the Baraboo School Board has been identified as Kevin and others have indicated, both statewide and nationally, for its expertise, for its excellence and its competence. I cannot tell you on how many school boards our administrators' names appear to be recruited to other districts. It would be a disservice to our community. It would be a disservice to our students to ignore the reality that the excellence that exists within our district that we have helped create and nurture will not be promoted. And I, for one, would vote to ensure the fact that we continue in the process that this board has committed to nurture from within.
Any additional comments? I would add that I did receive from Mr. Mortimer, who's under the weather and not with us tonight, a letter that indicated his desire to have the board hire an outside consultant to develop a candidate pool of at least 5 candidates. I just want to share that with the rest of the board. I don't think the rest of the board received that information from Mr. Mortimer. I expressed to him that I would share that with the rest of the board at the meeting tonight if he was unable to attend. Again, we do have one letter of interest from Ms. Miller in regards to the position. I think it would be advantageous for the board. When we talked at the Personnel Committee meeting, I think we had a very aggressive timeline that we were going to try to suggest. We can certainly let you know that our expectation was that if the board's desire was to interview internal candidates, and I think it's important that the board open it up for any internal candidates that are qualified by July the 1st, meaning they either currently hold or would hold the required administrative license by July the 1st of 2015, to send a letter of interest to the board. We certainly don't want to overlook anybody. We don't want anybody to leave because we didn't ask. So I would certainly ask those that are interested, if you meet those qualifications, to please forward a letter of interest to me as the board president, or any member of the board. It doesn't matter. I'm sure that we'll communicate it. The aggressive timeline for the interview process, if that's the direction the board wants to go, and we'll pursue that topic of direction shortly, would be within the next week to try to schedule interviews so that we could have those interviews. We have some issues because we have some board members that are going to be gone. Mr. Vedro, you're going to be gone the 26th, I believe. Are you available next week?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I do not know the availability of Mr. Cummings or Mr. Mortimer because they're not here. So I think probably the first and most important thing so that we can continue the conversation is to entertain a motion for the direction that the board goes. And I think it's fair to say that if the first step is to interview internal candidates, that does not preclude us from in the future going down another direction. My expectation is that we certainly hope that we have qualified candidates and that everything works out and can be negotiated, but a plan B would certainly be to pursue an external process that someone helps us with.
Do you want that in the form of a motion?
I guess the first thing I would entertain is a motion to interview internal candidates as soon as possible.
I make a motion to interview internal candidates as soon as possible, and if possible, this upcoming Monday, next week.
Do we have to wait for that motion to be
Yes.
seconded before we can discuss?
Yes.
I'll second that motion.
Okay.
Do we have a job description? I'm sorry, I missed last week's Personnel Committee meeting. But is there something for people to apply to?
There's a job description.
There is an up-to-date job
Well, I
description.
mean, the board could choose to look at it again. They formally adopted the job description.
And next
3 or
week,
4 years.
several of us will be at the education
Well, that's why I
convention.
said Monday, because we cannot
again, the education, so I mean, even Tuesday might be difficult to do.
Well, we discussed the advantage, disadvantage of trying to do it sooner rather than later, and Mo was not able to attend the personnel committee meeting, so it was Mr. McNevin and myself. Thought that it was important to start the process as soon as possible. I mean, we have an opportunity to certainly hire from within, and if for whatever reason that isn't to work out, the sooner that it's known that we are looking for an administrator outside of the district, the better off we're going to be. I mean, it's a process that you don't want to be dealing with this in April.
Well, the timing should not preclude any candidate, nor should the timing preclude any board member from participating in the process.
Agreed, and
It was just the personnel committee at the time thought that an expeditious process to identify a qualified candidate pool from within, and if lucky enough to so choose a candidate and get one on board, that's great. Then a transition plan could be developed and moved on. Otherwise, the process would then have to be defined by the board. Then the idea was so that at the next meeting, the board could say, okay, here's the process moving forward if it's different than finding someone.
I agree with allowing a rapid, speedy internal process. On the other hand, I don't think a person could reasonably put together a good application in 3 or 4 days. I think it takes a little bit of time to read the job description, understand, and put your materials together for a solid application. I also find that since I will be taking time off work to go to the education convention, I would have another, in the same week, to take another day off would be difficult. I would prefer, I guess, to give people 7 days to make the app from the time that we posted locally or internally until the time we close those applications, and then a day to review however many there might be before we even sit down for an interview. I think we're looking at a 2-week window.
Well, potentially, the board could look to interview the 2nd of February. That's a Monday. It's not a board meeting night. So it's an
I'm
alternative.
fine with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, I'm fine with that too. The only thing that I'll say is, again, I've recently gone through, and again, we've had the administrator there at CISA 5. Again, the sooner that we do this process, the better, because there will be a lot of shifting that will be going around in school districts. It's starting February, March, and so the sooner that we move ahead, not only for the district administrator, but if we do hire internally, we will have to do something for that position too. And so, yeah.
Soon is great.
Soon is great.
Soon is great. A window that is, where thoughtful consideration on the part of the applicant, and then on the part of reviewing those applications, I would advocate a 2-week.
Yeah, and the only reason I said, because I believe that sooner than later is better. And so, I think February 2nd, I can agree to that.
So if we were to have the window of opportunity to express an interest the Friday previous to the 2nd?
That's not the convention week, that's the week after the
Right.
convention.
Yeah.
Is that reasonable? I'm not sure what that date would be, but February.
Someone must have
Like
a
the
calendar.
30th or the
And also kind of on a side note, and I think Gary's probably the only one that has any historical context in relation to the administrator search, but just to share the experience that the board and my personal experience as a board member went through the last time we went for WASB's services to secure a district administrator. There was a process that the board had previously, the board which I became a member of, had a process in place that they had an assistant district administrator. And the expectation, I believe, from a number of parties was that that title of assistant district administrator meant something, and that that was the expected succession to the district administrator position. There were some things that happened in that process that, for whatever part I had in, I'm certainly not proud of. It didn't work well. It didn't work out well. I think the district, because of some actions that were taken, some things that did end up being said, some things that weren't said that should have been, we lost a very qualified applicant who would have been an excellent district administrator, and he's been at Wanakee for how many years?
Since 2004?
So for 10 years. In the interim, we then went out and hired Wisconsin Association of School Boards to do an administrator search for us. When I reflect back upon that process, I mean, some of it was comical, and it would have been comical if it weren't for the seriousness of the outcome. One of the interviews that we conducted was over the phone with somebody who was on vacation in Saudi Arabia. He was one of our finalists. My point is that there was an expectation when we went through that process that, you know, we were going to have people jumping up and down, cream of the crop people to come to Baraboo. There is a very small qualified administrative pool for school district administrators in the state. We tried to put together some numbers as to who has a full-time administrator. There's a couple of districts that share administrators. There's a couple of districts that have a high school principal who's also their district administrator or superintendent, sometimes they're referred to as. If it weren't for the process of having gone through that before, I probably would be one that would be inclined to say, I think it's important for us to find out what's out there. Having gone through that process, even though it was 10 years ago, I think that the qualified pool, to my knowledge, talking to people at conventions and such, is less than it was 10 years ago. And I think that we need to exhaust, I mean totally exhaust, our internal candidates before we would go through that process. It is a very long, drawn-out, time-consuming. It's one of the board's most important roles, and I'm not trying to diminish that fact at all. But it is a very long process that there's no guarantee. Some people interview very, very well, but that's what they do well, is interview. And there's something to be said for having somebody in your own district, you know their strengths, you know their weaknesses, you know their abilities to grow. That's something that's very difficult oftentimes to glean from an interview when people have given you nothing but the right people to talk to as far as references. And I think that it is very important that, you know, we not only move soon, I think it's important that every board member has an opportunity to be a part of the process, and if there's anything that affects everyone being part of that process with conflicts in dates, we need to make sure that everybody can be there, because it is one of the most critical, if not the most critical, duty you have as a board member to secure a district administrator. So, more than what I really wanted to say.
I would just add, you know, the overriding philosophy that we've committed ourselves to is collaborative engagement. And we have been trying to support that at every level and integrate that into the culture of the district. From an administrative standpoint, I'm very happy to know that our administrators work collaboratively across domains. And that includes within the administrative building itself, led by Dr. Ritzenthaler, as well as in every building with our principals, assistant principals, our support staffs, our teachers. We are creating a community of excellence, and we have been recognized for that. Let us continue that process, especially with the people that we have nurtured and who meet the requirements and who have made the commitments, and whom we know well. I have no problems with that philosophy.
So from the standpoint of entertaining a motion for the first step, or Plan A, hopefully a plan, period, moving forward, keeping in mind Mo's conversation in regards to allowing the appropriate time for somebody to express an interest. What timeline do we want to put in an expression of interest?
Well, you said February 2nd we would have a meeting.
Potentially, we could interview internal candidates February 2nd, which is a Monday.
Pulling up a calendar here.
Then
Happens to be the day after the Super Bowl, but that doesn't have anything to do with it.
Well, go Packers, yeah. What's the date? I mean, we want to just say the Friday before?
Let's look at the window to put the word out and allow a response before we talk about interviews.
Is the intent for you to work with WASB for the internal posting, Kevin? Or are you going to be working directly with our HR director for that internal posting?
Well, I would think in regards to the posting, that's something that we can certainly handle. I think if we do have a number of candidates that come forward from an internal candidate list perspective, that the board may wish to consider the services of WASB for the interview process. I think it would be premature to say we need to do that, but it would be important to consider that. One of the things that Mr. Merkbauer indicated to me was that when he worked with the district down by Milwaukee, and I think it was Shorewood, but I'm not positive, that they had they were a 7-member board, and they had 2 board members that weren't at the same level of confidence in the candidates that the other 5 members were, and they worked through a process that he believed at the end they had a unanimous support and approval of the hiring of the district administrator. And I think that is something worth considering. But I would indicate that until we know, the extent of what we may have for interest, I'm not sure the board wants to commit to that process.
We have a personnel committee meeting tomorrow night.
Yes.
And
You may, but. Is it too late because there is already an agenda posted? Is it too late to review the job description as it currently stands? Because it's not on that. So it's too late to do that.
Doesn't mean I can't share it out with the board, though, if you want to take a look at it.
It just isn't agendized. We could
sh-
still look at it.
Well, it could be shared out by email, yes?
Yeah, I could share.
Be shared out by email. And, because I would like the entire board to agree that that's in fact the job description that we want posted. Can we then, by the end of the week, assuming that there are no kind of drastic changes, by email, say, yes, this is the job description we'd like to see out, posted?
You could put it on the January 26th board agenda. That would still give you plenty of time to make any revisions.
But if we all, I mean, you seem rather comfortable with it. If we all agreed that by email that is in fact the job description?
We can't do that via email.
We can't do that by email?
Have to be at the January 26th.
Okay.
Well, what you could do is send it out, and provided there were no objections to the current job description, we can move forward if there are
Unless there are
objections expressed or concerns. And if there are concerns expressed, then we're going to have to deal with it in an agendized meeting.
I mean, the job description aligns with the ISLIC standards and the administrator standards in Wisconsin. So, I mean, it
It's
covers
not-
all areas.
Okay.
It would just be a matter of if you'd want to add some items under each of those broad areas.
So assuming that there aren't changes to be considered, by the 16th of January, if there are not, by the 16th of January, we could come to we could say, all right, let's post immediately or as on Monday the 19th?
Well, you don't need the full job description to do a posting. Postings are usually rather short, and all the
Really?
superintendent job postings are pretty much the same.
Okay.
So,
All right, so we
and
can
we have
post.
access to those online.
All right, so we can post immediately.
Yeah, there would be nothing to prevent you from posting immediately, Jeff. Especially if you're looking at doing this internally initially.
Yeah.
So it posted tomorrow, the 13th. We could ask for responses, well, since we will be at convention, we could ask for responses by the 23rd.
That's a Friday, yeah.
Right. That gives almost 2 weeks. That's more time than I would insist on giving, but there's no reason not to because we can't do much about it since we're at convention. And then meet on the 26th, perhaps before this meeting to review them, to review the applications.
The meeting of the 20th.
Don't we have don't we have a board meeting the 26th?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Well, if we met even a couple hours early, continuing, depending on how many we have, we only got 3.
I have a question regarding the posting. I've heard the term application thrown around, but also letter of interest. In the posting, which term do we want to use? Because they seem to be distinct items. And if it's an application, what is the application? Is it the weekend application? Is it?
Yeah, right. I would say application in the weekend, probably, yes. Isn't that what we're at?
Well, this is an internal posting. So do you really need to put it on weekend?
No, we don't need to, but it's the board's decision.
No,
And in fact, I might suggest we not put it on weekend.
Right.
Because it's going to go out to the whole board.
But it would, we could ask them to
No,
use that
weekend.
application form or they don't need to use a form. We need a resume, a couple of letters of, or not letters, but references that we could contact.
This is an internal one, yes.
Yeah?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And a cover letter stating why they think they're the right person for the job. So we don't need, I think it's more than a letter of interest. I think it's an application. Is that not true for an internal?
Fine.
I'd like to see their resume,
Okay, I'm okay.
even if we know who they are now.
Yeah.
And Kevin, I assume that you'd want those applications sent to the administration building to your attention.
Yeah, that sounds like a good. Yes.
Review on the 26th and interview that week. Or if you want to interview on Monday the 2nd, that's fine.
Oh, I'm.
That works?
I'm okay. The sooner the better. But I'll leave that up to the rest of the board to say if that they have any issues. I don't have any issues with any of those dates that week. It's not right now.
I don't think I do either.
Okay, well, at some point here, we need to put this into a
Okay.
formal motion.
All
as we
right.
can act.
What's the motion that's on the table right now?
So we're going to interview internal candidates starting next Monday. So obviously that needs to be changed.
Would you like to amend?
Can I amend my own motion?
Sure. Better you than anybody else.
Okay, I
Just saying.
amend my motion that we are going to have a search of internal candidates. They will make an application, obviously, with a resume and with recommendations. And that we need to have those applications in by
Friday the 23rd?
Friday the 23rd with an interview on,
We don't have to state interview dates.
well, I think we need to make a commitment just as a board.
To interview.
The 26th?
No, you gotta look at them first.
What? Okay, so we'll have a special meeting on the.
What if you say to interview no later than February the 2nd?
I think we can do that.
no later than February 2nd. So that way, we maybe make a decision the night of the 26th.
Seems like a long amendment. Could you wrap that one up a little bit?
I'm just,
I got stuff to do.
okay, does that sound fine?
Yes, that sounds fine.
Okay.
As clear as it is.
Ellen, you're gonna chop that down to about 13 words, right?
Yeah, thank you. Then in that case, I'll second it.
Whatever I said.
Is there any need for any additional discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Thank you, everyone, for your input in that topic and conversation. We'll obviously be talking again soon, and look for the job description in your email in the next day or next day, so that you can look at it. D, approval of new hires. We have an addition to oh, it's a long-term sub, we have the addition, okay.
That's
So
the
for
sub.
the new hire we have for high school math, Jason Bowl, entertain a motion to that effect. Background was provided in your board packet.
I move to approve. Second.
Motion by Mearing, seconded by Vedro for the approval of the hire for high school math, Jason Bowl. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carried. Brings us then for the approval of postings, of which I don't know, we have all the ones, I guess we accepted the retirements and the resignation. Do we already have that covered under a previous posting?
We do for the last time, but not for this meeting, so we would like approval to post for those positions
So
that the
moved.
board acted on.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Brings us to the approval of long-term subs. We have two of them. One is for GLW Physical Education, Tyler Mellenthine, and then for the middle school science, Michael Huber. That's middle school science. It was added to the long-term sub list you were given
Hot off the
earlier.
press.
Very
That
hot.
we do not have.
I move to approve both.
Second.
Having a motion by Mr. Mearing, seconded by Mr. McNevin, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you for that personnel recommendation section discussion. Brings us to new business, and for the approval of the disbursements, I'll talk to and turn to Mr. McNevin, Chair of Finance.
Move to approve.
Don't leave him hanging.
Second.
You can.
Sorry.
You can, we just don't get to mail out the checks. That'll go. Or have to
Motion
issue a
by
bunch of
McNevin,
stop
seconded
payments.
do
by
that.
Mearing for the approval of the disbursements. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Brings us to B, the approval of the pool trench drain change order. This came out of Buildings and Grounds. I guess I will rely upon myself to try and explain.
Where's the information?
Essentially, the pool trench drain had issues with the slope at one end of the pool. And the suggested remedy to the situation was to split the cost of that fix 4 ways. And we had three firms involved, plus the school district, to split it 4 ways. And our portion of that change order amounts to the $3,136.50.
Move to approve.
Second.
Having a motion by Mr. McNevin, seconded by Mr. Mearing for the approval of the pool trench drain change order, $3,136.50. Any discussion?
What are the other three parties?
The other 3 parties involved were Midstate Associates, Lamazney Construction, and Terrytown Plumbing. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. C, under new business, the approval of the designs and drawings for the referendum projects. This motion came from, or this item came from Buildings, Grounds, and Transportation. There was a recommendation to approve to the full board the final drawings at the January the 12th meeting. I'll leave that up to the board whether you want to continue and vote on the motion. We don't have Mr. O'Brien or the other two members of Buildings, Grounds, and Transportation with us tonight.
Did they vote on it? And
Yes, we voted unanimously to bring forward to the full board for recommendation to approve the designs and the drawings that have been presented thus far.
move to approve. And I'll second that based upon the recommendation of the BGT.
Having a motion and a second, any further discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carried. Brings us to page 2.
The rest of the story.
And Key Club had to wait all this time to get approval for their field trip. Where's Key Club going?
It's the Wisconsin Upper Michigan Conference, and it's in Green Bay.
They go every year.
Sounds like fun. I move to approve
I'll second that.
the Key Club overnight trip.
That's a second.
A second made before the motion, but I still got the second. Motion by Meering, seconded by Riley for the approval of the Key Club's overnight field trip, the 13th through the 15th of March. Any discussion further? Hearing none, those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Brings us to the approval of the Next Generation Science Standards Resolution. I can certainly read the resolution if it be.
I wrote the resolution, so I would move
Read it
that.
with your eyes closed, Doug.
I can read it with my eyes closed. I move to approve the Next Generation Science Standards based upon what I wrote. E, which is E, and there's A, B, and C, and we've had a pretty full discussion on this already, so.
I'll second that.
Having a motion and a
That's gotta
second.
be your shortest motion of the night.
And did I do that too early?
I could have done it before. I know she'll get it down. It's actually the full.
Having a motion and a second, any further discussion? Mr. Vedro, this is your opportunity, unless you want to say, if you wish to say anything further.
Very happy.
Huh?
I'm very happy.
You're sure you're not going to come back after G? Okay.
Oh.
Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Brings us to F, the approval of QTI for the Alio personnel data. Jeff?
Yes, in your packet, you have a memo related to the need to have a contract with QTI. Basically, upon my arrival, I began using Alio. Obviously, it's our financial software. And there's really three things that I see that need to be done through the duration of this contract, which you'll see, it's also in your packet, is 6 to 8 weeks. The Affordable Care Act is here, and there's some reporting that needs to be done, and we need to prepare our software for that reporting. That's really step one. Step two, there's a lot of inaccurate data within Alio that needs to be fixed. So that's kind of step two, and then step three is to begin utilizing some advanced features within Alio. And that's all outlined in my long-winded memo to you. So if you want any more information related to that, feel free to fire those questions at me. But basically, we're looking to bring someone in from QTI to help us update our software.
How long will you think? Do we have any feel?
6 to 8 weeks.
6 to 8 weeks. Okay. I move to approve based upon the recommendation in our board packet.
I'll second that.
Having a motion by Meering, seconded by Riley. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to offer an amendment that it not exceed 4 weeks. I think it's certainly doable in a shorter period of time.
Are they just correcting the software, or updating the software, or with inaccurate information? Are we rekeying information?
With regards to the ACA reporting, there's going to be some keying involved with that. With regards to inaccurate information, I'll give you one example. There's a dates field where we record hire dates and termination dates and things along those lines. We've noticed that some of the dates, and we had a transfer from an old system to a new system, and some of those dates got lost. So it's going to encompass, take person A, look at their date doesn't mesh, go pull personnel file, look up date, and personnel file, come back to software, key in the date, and repeat. So there will be rekeying involved within it. So.
Can it be done in 4 weeks?
I think the board could limit it to 4 weeks, and then if for some reason it's absolutely inhumanly possible to get it done in a time frame.
And we're talking a 40-hour week, one person on a 40-hour week?
That's up for debate. We'll see the person that they recommend to us for this contract and see what their availability is.
How do you feel about making it 4 weeks and then coming back and saying, you know what, we still need another 40 hours or whatever?
Really, it's the board's decision to decide, I guess.
Well, okay.
I think Sean's amendment is jobs tend to increase to the level of time there is. So if we start with a manageable amount of time that we would agree, and then think there needs to be more, we'll take our recommendations from administration that will be overseeing that project.
Okay. I accept the amendment.
Who seconded Mo?
I accept the change. Amen.
So we have a motion, a second with a friendly amendment, both accepted from the first and the second. Any further discussion?
Well, being that we have an accepted amendment, or we have a revised motion and a second to it, I'm going to vote no on this. I think that this is the work that should be done within the department rather than farmed out to a temp agency, but.
Did we have that discussion?
Well, we did that last time. We farmed it out to QTI last time, but that was an overwhelming project with retirees covering multiple directors of finance and multiple accountants and decades of retirements in every form or fashion, coming under every contract ever negotiated, each and every time. So it to me seemed like an overwhelming project that had been tackled once or twice before internally and never successfully seen through fruition just because of the size and scope of it. So that's why I supported it last time. This time around, you're talking about hire dates, term dates, ACA requirements. This is in the purview of our existing staff.
It is, and I think it's something that could be done. However, you're going to be stretching that out over a longer period of time, months and months, with the current workload in that department. And basically, we're working with inaccurate data. I mean, I was listed in the system as having been here 6 years.
6-year employee.
Yeah. So, I mean, we don't know to what level the inaccuracies are there, and that's why it's so important to make sure that we're working with clean data.
Is there a problem?
Well, then I would counter that and say that I think that it's even more critical that our staff do it then. I mean, if that's the nature of the issue, then that nature of that issue has been ongoing for an extended period of time. Whether it takes 4 weeks to correct or 2 months to correct becomes irrelevant if we're talking about a situation where the data's been inaccurate to that degree for that extended period of time. The time it takes to fix it becomes irrelevant or moot. I would think that it really behooves our staff to do this, since it is their data system, it is their employees, and it is their responsibility. I mean, the accuracy of the data is their responsibility.
To address your question, I think part of it has been the transition in that department and having different people do different things, and also the conversion to Alio and some of the updates and the lack of training that was provided to some of the current staff. So I think that's part of the issue.
Craig, I don't know if you would want to speak to the time-sensitive nature of the ACA piece.
Well,
we could just vote. I mean, you could speak to it. We can vote, though. I mean, if I'm the odd man out, that's fine. I'm still gonna vote no.
I mean, is there a reason why we need to have this done now versus being stretched out?
Well, we're working with inaccurate data. So that data, we use that data for a multitude of things, everything from benefits to, I mean, it impacts all areas of HR, so.
And with the Affordable Care Act, a reporting requirement doesn't technically begin till, I think, early 2016, but the data we're reporting is based on starting this month, January 15. And so I don't know the implications of if we don't have the January of 15 data correct now, if we try to correct that in March, I mean, it might be okay. I don't know. My preference would be that we not take the chance, but.
Well, we won't have it ready on the 15th.
Well, January of 15, might not be ready on the 15th, but it might be ready, soon thereafter.
I see two different levels of issues, two issues of different levels. One is keying in, checking dates, hire dates, confirming, correcting. Keyboard entry, with the check against the file. And then I see something that's a much higher level, and that's what Jeff mentioned about being trained to use Alio to its best use. Applications that we're not now using or we don't know how to use. And that's a training issue, and that takes somebody that's going to cost more per hour than it would to pay somebody to do data entry. Are you talking about just getting one person to do both of those? Or can we get a $8.50 an hour key entry and for 3 weeks and a week long of high level training by someone else at a higher cost?
I think the proposal was really to, again, first and foremost, do some data entry. What skill level you need is up for interpretation related to, what the person will be doing.
But do we have employees that need training on Alio and that we couldn't, that's not an internal job, that's a job that someone has to come in to do?
Personally, I don't think it's a training thing what we need done, it's a time thing.
Okay.
And in our office, the staffing just has not allowed for these updates to be made.
Okay.
So that's what we're looking at is, hey, if we had another person in here, we might be able to accomplish some of these things, so.
Do we have a terminal for that person to be working on all the time?
What's that?
Is there a terminal, is there a computer that this person can?
There's a station.
A station?
I'm confused. I'm hearing that we have critical issues with reporting data that affect people's lives and futures, benefits, et cetera. And then I hear that we're going to farm this out to QTI, and the level of the individual and their competence that we're going to be paying for, we don't know yet. And we don't know anything other than data entry.
Well, we still go through an interview process. It's that we're able to get a temporary employee and not have to pay the benefits and all of the other things for a short-term employee. And the last time we utilized this approach, it was very effective. We accomplished actually in less than the time frame that we had anticipated.
Well, that's what I was hoping to hear.
Does
We had an experience. It was a good experience.
Outstanding experience.
It got the job done. What is the dollar amount in our $33 million enterprise that we're talking about here?
We will pay 23 and change per hour. The employee would be compensated by QTI at $15 an hour.
And we're saying roughly the total amount?
$4,000 if it's 4 weeks.
$4,000. I'm happy. Let's get the problem solved.
Is it fair to assume that there is already a particular individual that the district would have in mind to hire through QTI to perform the services we're talking about?
We did have a great experience in our last process when we cleaned up our retirement benefit. If we were requesting someone, that would probably be our first choice, but I'm not sure if that person will be available through
Okay.
QTI.
Secondly, if the board votes and approves a 4-week QTI employee to correct our situation, what do we have in place moving forward to prevent it from happening again?
Well, we do have a new payroll specialist that was hired 2 months ago at this point, who is being trained on the appropriate way to input things into the system. And that had been a problem previously.
And also, a lot of the issues come up when individuals are hired to switch positions or change positions or exit the district. And over the past year in particular, we've established some, with the help of the principals in particular and the other district office staff, some pretty tight procedures so that every time one of those things happens, hired, transfer, switch a position or exit, there's a specific procedure where it definitely gets entered into Alio. So going forward, I don't see the same mess, resulting again. I mean, the challenge now is, historically, you could ask for the data out of Alio, and 95% of it or 90% of it might be correct, but you don't know what that 5 or 10% is. So you could spend, in a sense, it's almost useless.
Because you're having to check everything.
What's that?
You have to check everything.
Right, it's like, pretty much go line by line in some cases and say, okay, is this person an active, because for example, it might not indicate who's active employee and who's an inactive employee accurately. Might have somebody who left 2 years ago as an active employee in Alio. So then you want a list of your employees that, principal asked me for a list of employees, who are my employees? It's embarrassing. We should be able to go into Alio, hit a few buttons and say, these are the employees at X school. It should be a 3-minute procedure, not, well, that person actually left or transferred or whatever.
I'll call for a vote on the motion.
No further discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Okay. Motion passed. Brings us to the Wisconsin State School Board's Convention. Turn it
Okay.
over to Mr. Meering for number 1.
Yeah, number 1, basically, we've Dr. Ritzenthaler sent the resolutions to everybody. If anybody has any questions on them, please bring them forward. I certainly will go with whatever the board says. Otherwise, this is the resolution that I'd like to make and to move on. The Baraboo Board of Education resolves to give its delegate the direction to vote in favor of the proposed 2015 Wisconsin Association of School Board resolution as written. Also, as amendments are brought forward to the 2015 WASB Delegate Assembly, it gives its delegate the authority to make his/her best judgment in representing the Baraboo School District. That's my motion.
Second.
Having a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Okay.
Motion carried. Thank you. Also on number 2, Mr. Meering.
Yeah, I know at least 2 of us. Mo's going, I know I'm going. Other board members may be going, but there will be a session on Thursday at the Education Convention that we will be attending, and it will be discussing a process that's done through CESA 6 on evaluation, not only the board, but there's also a process that also involves administrators. And we'll be attending that, and then we will be coming back with an evaluation for the board to move forward on our own board evaluation. So that's just a reporting more than making any type of motion at this point.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for the update.
I guess I'm
Brings us
still on
to
deck
your
now.
Next.
Okay, I'm just gonna, before I make the motion, I just want to say that these are, all these policies were reviewed by the policy committee. I did send a note to the board to read them. We are not going to read them tonight. we'll be getting out of here probably about 10 o'clock if we do. But they were very well written, but we did review them very, very closely. You know, and again, some of these, obviously, Lori, again, we did review these, but if you want to just give us a quick report on the policies that we reviewed.
Sure. So the course options and the online learning both are brand new policies. The course options just so that we're in compliance with the new state statutes, and there's been an elimination of part-time open enrollment, and that's why we need a policy for course options. Online learning, we have an online learning resource guide, and I think that's why Ms. Gilmore is here, and she's facilitating that and leading that. And so this would just make it a formal policy. The promotion retention deals with changing the amount of credits that our students need as freshmen and sophomores primarily in terms of promoting them to the next grade level. Currently, we have a requirement system that is, my perception, a little punitive, and this would allow more students to move from 9th grade to 10th grade, therefore reducing the risk of early dropout and maybe hopefully improve our graduation rates. So the recommendation in that policy is really to follow the recommendations from DPI and help our students out. The graduation policy deals with the changes in credit requirements at math and science. We did not have that formally worded in our policy, so there's been an exhibit added that outlines all the different credit requirements. The summer school is just to be in compliance with a request from our auditors about when do we determine when students are no longer a summer school enrolled student. And then the 461 student scholarships and senior awards is due to the addition of a technical education excellence scholarship for the state, and we need to have that policy in place before February because we'll get to nominate 2 students for that scholarship. So that was the quick.
That was that
Yeah.
took about 2 hours and about 2 minutes. And again, so we did discuss each one of those policies in great detail at the policy committee level. And so at that point, I'd like to, for the first reading, I'd like to waive the reading in lieu of the fact that these have been discussed at policy and all of our board members have read them. And that is for the full slate, and I'll read them all. The 343.4 for the course options, the 343.7 online learning, the 345.4 promotion/retention, the 345.6 graduation, the 351 summer school, and the 461 student scholarships and senior awards. And that is my motion that we accept all of those. We can, and is there a second?
A second.
Okay, and just to say that if there is a friendly amendment, we can obviously pull any one of these out separately to discuss. And again, we did have a very, very full discussion at the policy committee on these.
2 questions. This numbering system, the 343.44, that's not normally how we number them.
Which one is that?
That's the first one. 343.44 course options.
Oh,
The
I
policy's
think
numbered
it's a-
343.44. Is that correct? Is that, why .44?
Shouldn't it be just .4?
Ellen, do you know?
There's already a .4 and there's probably already a .5, so we needed it to get in between. We go out to 2 or 3 digits after the point.
Okay. That's not unprecedented. I do believe we have other ones that are like that, so.
We sandwiched
It's
them.
different, but it's certainly not unusual.
Secondly, under the rule for 343, I gotta find it here, sorry. There's a form and it says insert Google form here. Is that, this Google form here, is that what it's supposed to say? That's 343.7 exhibit, at the very top.
No, there's a Google form that has been developed by myself and Matt Cullen that will go there so that there's an online application.
So there will be a link that will be in there?
Yes.
Okay. And it's an exhibit, so it's fine. I just wanted to make sure that That was correct. No further questions. Anybody else?
Lori, this is first reading, but
Sure.
I guess between now and second reading, I'm wondering if you could speak to me about additional measures that we could look at to make sure that kids aren't abusing the whole retake policy that we've got, the retest policy. And if there's any additional measures we could put into place to help some of the teaching staff so it isn't, you know, I don't want to say overwhelming, but it isn't a burden to reprocess every retake of every test. And also, I'd like to spend a little time talking about the grading system that changes it from a point scale that goes from 70 or 69 to 100 down to 59 to 100 before the second reading.
Anything else? Hearing nothing, those in favor of the first reading as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Marion, for walking us through that. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those
Aye.
opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.